Hello and welcome to the channel of Hashalia once again. And I trust that God is continuing to bless you day by day. Today is the 7th of September 2024. Okay, I was out for a walk early this morning by the river and I felt God gave me a, a, a message. And I'm pleased to say it's a pretty straightforward message, but it is also very, very powerful. So, we often hear that Jesus has already won the victory. And that is very true. In fact, let me just read to you from Second Colossians chapter 2, verses 13 to 15. You were dead because of your sins, that is because of your foreskin, your old nature, but God made you alive along with the Messiah by forgiving all your sins. He wiped away the bill of charges against us because of the regulations. It stood as a testimony against us. But he removed it by nailing it to the execution stake of the cross. Stripping the rulers and authorities of their power, he made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them by means of the stake, by means of the cross. So, very, very clear that Jesus has won the victory. And ultimately, he has completely won the victory. So when maybe we say or somebody else says, the war's already won, the victory's won, Jesus did it all at the cross. That's it. That is very, very true. We have no need to fear of anything. Jesus has won the victory. But what does that mean for us in a practical sense as Christians? When it comes to battles, Jesus has won. So what does it mean for us personally? Well, it does mean that we will still be involved in spiritual battles. It doesn't mean that See, I was thinking that when I was walking by the river, I was getting this picture of the Second World War, and it became apparent, and it was going around the media all around the world at that time. The war was basically over. The Allies had won. Germany had been defeated. Germany, Italy, Japan. The war was basically won. But if you were on the ground in certain locations at that time, there were still skirmishes going on, little battles here and there between the Germans and the Allies. And this went on for quite some time before all hostilities ceased. The war was finished, it was done. The Allies had won it and they were going into various areas and liberating people all over the place. But battles were still continuing. And sometimes the Germans won those battles, and sometimes the Allies won those little battles. And such is the case with us as Christians. We are very much involved in battles, spiritual battles, but they have physical implications. So let me read to you from the scriptures what I believe God gave me to help us to understand what he was saying. So I'm going to start with 1 Samuel chapter 17, and I want to read from verses 32 to 37. Now, this is the famous story of David against Goliath. And David turns up, his father sends him to take some food to his brothers who are with the Israelites' war against the Philistines. David turns up and he finds out this situation about this big warrior who is scaring all of Israel. And he starts to ask questions. His brothers get angry with him and says, you don't even know what you're talking about. Like, you're just here to cause trouble. But I want to pick up the story in 1 Samuel 17, starting in verse 32. Shaul, this is King Saul, said to David, you can't go to fight this Philistine. You're just a boy, and he has been a warrior from his youth. David answered Shaul, your servant used to guard his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear would come and grab a lamb from the flock, I would go after it, hit it, and snatch the lamb from its mouth. And if it turned on me, I would catch it by the jaw, smack it, and kill it. I find that very, very interesting. If the lion or the bear grabbed a sheep, we're told that David would actually go right into the heart of the battle and snatch it from the jaws, from the teeth of the enemy. This is how God prepared David for what was coming ahead. He knew he was going to have many battles, but I find that very, very interesting. Verse 36, your servant has defeated both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has challenged the armies of the living God. Then David said, Adonai, who rescued me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, will rescue me from the paw of this Philistine. Shaul said to David, go, may Adonai be with you. David very well understood this was very much a spiritual battle. It was a spiritual battle that God had directed David into. This was David's battle. Ultimately, it was God's. The battle belongs to the Lord, but David was his man for this particular battle, which was both spiritual and physical. And David understood this very, very well. He understood there was a spirit at the back of Goliath. He understood the spiritual implications. And so therefore, he knew he was battling in the spiritual, but there was also something he had to do physically. And we see this in verses 44 to 46 of the same chapter, 1 Samuel 17. 44 to 46. Sorry, let me just find it. My eyesight's not as good as what it used to be. So, here we are. It is Goliath now speaking. Then the Philistine said to David, come here to me, so I can give your flesh to the birds in the air and the wild animals. David answered the Philistine, you're coming at me with a sword, a spear, and a javelin. Okay? You're coming to me with some physical weapons. But I'm coming at you in the name of Adonai Zvaot, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have challenged. Straight away, I'm coming to you in the name of Adonai Zvaot, the Lord of hosts. I'm coming to you in the name of God. Very spiritual. Very, very spiritual. Goliath's just pure flesh. He's big, much bigger than David. He's going to wipe out David with these weapons that he's got. David understands that he's coming in the name of God. This is a spiritual battle. But he also has physical weapons. But he understands the spiritual implications first. Today Adonai will hand you over to me. I will attack you, lop your head off, and give the carcasses of the army of the Philistines to the birds in the air and the animals in the land. Then all the land will know that there's a God in Israel. So he's basically almost prophesying. He said, I'm going to lop your head off. Well, how did he know this was going to happen? He just had a slingshot and some stones. You're not going to take somebody's head off with a stone. He was prophesying in the spirit. He knew that he was going to cut Goliath's head off. He knew. Very interesting. But this was a battle that was specifically set aside for King David. An individual. Okay? Follow along with me here, and I'll wrap it up at the end. Now, I want to turn to Acts chapter 18, just verses 1 and 2. Acts 18, verses 1 and 2. Bear with me, friends. Acts 18. We've got a couple here, Priscilla and Aquila. Okay? After this, Shaul, Paul the Apostle, left Athens and went to Corinth, where he met a Jewish man named Aquila, originally from Pontus, but having recently come with his wife Priscilla from Italy, because Claudius, the Emperor Claudius, had issued a decree expelling all the Jews from Rome. Shaul went to see them, and because he had the same trade as they, making tents, he stayed on with them, and they worked together. So now you've got a couple, a married couple. You've got Priscilla and Aquila, and they've been going through this persecution. Claudius has issued the decree to expel all the Jews from Rome, and that is the background to the book of Romans, actually, which I've spoke about before. But this is a battle for Priscilla and Aquila, a married couple. And they have to deal with this persecution, which again, it's spiritual. Claudius issued the decree, but it is a very spiritual thing. It's a satanic attack against the Jewish people. But let's just jump back to Romans. I want to jump forward to Romans 16. Romans 16 and verses 3 and 4. This is Paul speaking. Romans 16, again, the complete Jewish study Bible, verses 3 and 4. Give my greetings to Priscilla and Aquila, my fellow workers for the Messiah, Yeshua. They risked their necks to save my life. Not only I thank them, but also all the Messianic communities among the Gentiles. Priscilla and Aquila put their life on the line for Paul and for the Messianic communities. God used them as a team. They battled as a team, a married couple. Priscilla and Aquila and Priscilla. And these, just like King David, the very, very serious situation. It's a spiritual battle. When they were expelled from Rome, that was very, very spiritual. But there was a practical outworking. The decree went into effect, and they had to get out of Rome. And so they met Paul. And as they got to know Paul and the churches that were being built up by Paul, Priscilla and Aquila were right in the heat of the battle, or battles, spiritual and physical. You see, it's a spiritual battle, but they actually risked their lives. There was a practical outworking of the spiritual battle. It tells us they risked their lives, just like David risked his life. But they understood the spiritual because they understood who their God was. Okay? Now, let's jump back to Acts chapter 12. And we're going to read from 6 to 12. Acts 12, 6 to 12. The night before Herod was going to... So this is Peter. He's been put in jail. And ultimately, what's going to happen the following morning is Peter's going to be executed. Herod had put him in jail, didn't he? Didn't like him. So Acts 12, verses 6 to 12. The night before Herod was going to bring him to trial, Kepha, Peter, was sleeping between two soldiers. He was bound with two chains, and guards were at the door, keeping watch over the prison. Suddenly an angel of Adonai stood there, and a light shone in the cell. He tapped Kepha's side and woke him up. "Hurry, get up," he said, and the chains fell off his hands. The angel said to him, "Put on your clothes and sandals," and he did. "Throw on your robe," he said, "and follow me." Going out, Kepha, Peter, followed him, but did not realize that what was happening through the angel was real. He thought he was seeing a vision. It just shows you that sometimes visions are so real, you can't tell the difference between actual reality in the vision itself. Verse 10. Having passed the first guard and the second, they arrived at the iron gate leading to the city. This opened to them by itself, and they made their exit. They went down the length of one street, and suddenly the angel left him. Then Kepha came to himself and said, Now I know for sure that the Lord sent his angel to rescue me from Herod's power and from everything the Judean people were hoping for. The Jews were hoping for it. They wanted to have him killed. They were looking forward to it. And so was Herod. Verse 12, realizing what had happened, he went to the house of Miriam, the mother of Johanan, surnamed Mark, John Mark, where many people had gathered to pray. Many people had gathered to pray. The church understood the situation with people, and so they came together. They understood this was spiritual, very, very spiritual. And the practical outworking of this, in this situation, was they gathered together to pray. They gathered together to pray. But there was something practical for them to do. They understood the spiritual side of this. Peter also understood the spiritual side, especially when he come to realise he wasn't having a vision after all. Like that, it was an angel had really visited him. But we see a situation where a group, a body of believers, come together in a battle, and they're praying for Peter. It's a spiritual battle, and therefore they wage war in the heavenlies. And the outworking of this was an angel visits Peter and basically sets him free. Physical things happen. But the body had to get together, and they were waging war in the heavenlies. There was a practical side for them, and there was practical things happening for Peter as he walked out the prison and then came to this realization it wasn't a vision, and headed for the house of Miriam, where the believers were. And if you go on and read that story, you go further into it, the believers don't believe that it's actually Peter at the door. They've been praying for this, the prayer's answered, and they think, nah. So it gives you an insight into their mindset. Nah, he's in jail, he's going to be killed tomorrow morning. We're just sitting here praying. So it's almost like they're praying with unbelief. But God's faithful. God is faithful. Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief. But what God was showing me this morning was the war has been won, but there's still many battles. There's many battles for us. And some of those battles, it's just you. You and God, but you alone have been chosen for a particular battle. In other circumstances, it might be you and your wife, or you and your husband. As a unit, you've been chosen for a particular battle. In other cases, it's a group of you. I was teaching the Bible study last night, and one of the attendees at the Bible study, he asked the question, because we were discussing and looking over many things. He says, but what should our response be to this? So we're talking about maybe some difficult times coming for believers. And he was asking a very specific question. He was saying, how do we as a group in this Bible study, how do we respond to this type of a situation? You see, there was an understanding that this is a battle for us as a group. So God is going to take you into battles where it's just you. He's got a battle for you. And then he's got a battle for married couples. couples, whatever, a small group, one couple of yous. And then there are battles for the group. The group. The battles are still going on. You see, the war's been won, but it's not been declared worldwide. Your Second World War, not everybody really understood that the war was quite finished. This war has been won by Jesus. It was won on the cross. But there are still battles for us as believers, as a body. So that is what the Lord was really impressing on me this morning. So in some way, I'm kind of hoping that this helps you. I'm hoping it encourages you to get further into the scriptures and really dig into them yourselves. And I'd like to just finish off basically by pointing you to some, because this is now went on a bit, but go to Ephesians chapter 6, the famous one about the armour of God. See, how do we prepare for these battles? Well, we prepare through prayer, reading the scriptures, getting close to God. But Ephesians 6 is a very good one, the armour of God. And also in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 15 and 16, it talks about having the mind of Christ. The mind of Christ. Recently, I told you about a digital fast I had for 7 days. And I got a lot of revelation during that time. The first 5 days, I got a lot of stuff. But for a couple of days at the end there, I've never known intensity like it as far as spiritual attack went. It was absolutely intense. I'd never known an intensity like this. I didn't think it could get to that level. Every time some of these things happen, you think it cannot get any worse. It can't get tougher. But it does. But God brings you through. But let me just tell you some of the things that happened, or one of the things that happened to me. I was in this incredible rage. It was like this massive battle was going on all through the night, all through the day, all through the night for a couple of days. And I was trying to focus my mind on Christ. And I would manage it for maybe 2 or 3 seconds. And that was about it. I was just right back into this rage and then very low and depressed. And it was horrible. I didn't think I was going to come out of that. The intensity was unbelievable. But I just had to get down before God and say, God, if you didn't move, I'm going to explode. I'm going to have a heart attack. I'm just going to shatter into a million pieces. It was intense. It was only later I realised I should have been expecting it. I should have expected it. I'd just been given quite a bit of revelation in the previous 5 days. So it made sense that this type of attack would come. We're going into higher intensity times, friends. And God wants us to know that. And there's battles for us. I'm telling you, there is battles for us. And it depends a lot on us how we approach these battles, whether we're going to win or we're going to lose. Now, I'm just talking about individual battles like that, but you want to be as well prepared as you possibly can. So read Ephesians 6 with a fresher, more open mind and really understand about preparation for spiritual battles. Read 1 Corinthians 2, 15 and 16. 1 Corinthians 2, 15 and 16. And other scriptures that help you to become encouraged. But battles are coming. Individual battles as married couples, and in battles is a body. So anyway, until next time, may the Lord bless you and have a great day.